everybody, and welcome to the world's favorite youth baseball podcast, Clearing the Bases, featuring Coach Jimmy, Phil, and Jerry. I'm David Friedman, and I want to thank you for coming along this ride with us. How we doing today, Coach?
Doing good, Dave. Just finished up a tournament, Saturday-Sunday tournament, and we'll call it a so-so performance. The boys did at times better than normal, and at times back to the stuff that we've been trying to work on for the last few months. But look, just as long as we keep moving in that positive direction, I'm happy. So we'll call it a success.
Right. We can always aim for perfection. We know we're never going to get there, but we want to keep things rolling in the right direction and keep Coach happy.
It's not necessarily the coach that we got to keep happy anymore. It's the parents. We got to keep them happy. Otherwise, they'll lynch me.
Little column A, little column B there.
There you go.
So you're I don't know, a month or so in now on your summer season. So what would you say is the biggest thing now looking back that you could have put more time in on?
That's an interesting question. This team is somewhat.
I like to throw you off.
Yeah, this one you're killing me on. This team is a little bit of an enigma. We've spoke about this before because they're a 14U travel team. And I'm running into something that I really never ran into before, where the basics are lacking. So we spend a lot of time on things that I normally wouldn't do with a 14U team. I mean, down to how we take leads off of first base, which I don't think that a 14 I should have to teach, and that type of thing. So I really can't say one thing or the other that I should have done differently. I think I'm working to what I have.
Gotcha. All right. Well, like I said, as long as you keep making some positive steps each week, that should keep the kids interested and keep everybody on the same plane.
Right. You know how I feel. Regardless, I mean, if they know how to take their leads off of first base, they know how to hit the cutoff. They know how to receive a cut. They know how to communicate, which is a big thing with me because young kids nowadays, they're very timid. They're not vocal. So if we can get those things across, then yes, it's positive.
Yeah, and it's interesting where you say like at this age they should know how to play, and some of the basics. And I know it was just one example that you gave, but the whole leading off of first thing where you go, well, all right, well they've only been on the big field for 2 years, but most of them have probably been playing travel ball since we have leading at 10 years old in this day and age. So yeah, if they weren't taught the basics back then, that's a rough position to be in as a coach at this age. And when you're having to spend multiple practices, multiple times and multiple practices on those basics, it makes it hard to really get your kids to advance up to the next level.
Exactly. So, like we always say, we do the best we can. We teach them what we can and move them in the right direction.
That's it. So speaking of moving in the right direction, very, very pleased to announce this week's special guest. We have a guy who has coached at basically the highest levels that we've dealt with here on the show in the year and a half or so we've been putting these out. I'd like to welcome to the show, Mr. Jeremy Sheetinger.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Hey Coach, doing? Thanks for coming.
Living the dream, man. Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to connect. And Dave, Jimmy, I'm looking forward to the conversation, man.
Well, let's hope we have a good one for you, right, Dave?
Absolutely.
I don't think there's any doubt it's going to be. So, Jimmy, you've been a big fan of Jeremy's for quite some time. You do a lot more of the kind of looking around online at different coaches and different people to follow than myself. So why don't you go ahead and give us a little rundown on Jeremy?
Okay. So Coach Sheets, I mean, is it okay if I call you Sheets? I mean, I feel like that's
yeah. I always say, David, just so people call me Jeremy, it must be a debt collector. Like I must owe them money because they're calling me by my proper name.
I don't.
That's all I ever hear is everybody calls you Sheets. And I said, I don't know him. And, am I going to go out there and say, hey, Sheets, like, we've been buddies forever.
No, it's like Prince. It's like one name, right? Just Sheets, like easy, super easy.
So like Dave said, yes, I've been following you obviously for many, many years since I started listening to you on the ABCA podcast. As a matter of fact, when when we were in Dallas for the ABCA convention, I actually came up to you. We had a little conversation, maybe like a 2-minute conversation.
Sure.
But I just want our listeners to know that if you don't know about Sheets, it would probably be in your best interest to do a little research and find out about him. There are many accolades that we can go through and list all of his accomplishments, but I think I'd rather run through the conversation and let all of those accomplishments come out on their own. So let's start with Coach. When did you first start coaching?
2005, but that was my first college season. I actually coached a 16-year-old all-star team for 2 summers when I was 20 and 21 years old. So about 21 years ago, I know it seems old to me, but about 21 years ago is when I first
you're forgetting who you're on the line with.
I know.
Don't be talking about you being old.
But yeah, 21 years, and then college. This should be my 19th year.
That's funny. I first started coaching, same thing. I was probably 21, 22 at the time. And that was back in like 1981, 1982.
Yeah. I was born in 81. So that'll date you.
Right. So let me ask you, how was that experience doing that 16U team? Because I know how mine was when I first started.
And I'm probably my harshest critic, but I'm also very forthright about it. Let me backpedal just a little bit. So I had a really great little league experience. Like if that changed the trajectory of my life. I was a basketball kid from Kentucky. So, that's kind of what you do. And I had the court, like my house was the court where everybody played at. And basketball, I thought was in my future. I thought I was going to be the next chubby white Magic Johnson out there throwing behind the back passes. And baseball was a hobby for me. And it took one coach, Bud Ritchie, that really showed me the game was different than I thought. And he taught me things that I'd never been taught before. And I say this, man, if you guys will know what this means. He took a kid that played right field and hit ninth. And he said, "Nah, man, you're one of the biggest kids on the field. There's more talent in there. No one's ever worked with you. I'm going to bring you into first base. I'm going to hit you fourth." And I just was like, "Oh my, I'm one of the guys now. I'm in the mix." Like, and he just taught me how to play first base. He taught me how to hit a breaking ball. He taught me things that changed the way I saw the game. And it took me a couple years. So I would say about 14 or 15, my dad asked me, "What are you thinking you want to do?" And I said, I really think I want to coach baseball. And he goes, "Okay, well, how are we going to do that?" I'm not really sure. And he goes, "Well, you can coach high school. That's what we knew, right?" He goes, "So you're going to have to get an education degree. And then you can try to, coach high school baseball." And I said, that's what I'm going to do. And I got into college, and that was my goal. I was an English major. Long story short, I got into an upper level British literature class my spring of my freshman year. My English department chair said, "Let's challenge you a little bit. Let's put you in this junior level Brit Lit." And it knocked me back against the wall, and I barely passed it. And I said, "I don't think this is for me." And she goes, "Well, this is kind of what English is all about." Yeah. I went and met with my college assistant, Ryan Brisbane, who's now the head coach at Shriner in Texas. And I said, "Briz, I don't know, man, I'm kind of contemplating my move." And he goes, "Man, you really need to do college baseball." He goes, "You'd be great. Personality, all that stuff. You'll love the lifestyle." And all right. And I literally left his office, went upstairs, changed my major to sports management, and never looked back. And it was always about being a college coach. Now, not that summer, but the next summer and the summer thereafter, I had 3 years left of college baseball. But for 2 of my summers, I coached. So I didn't even play. I had shoulder surgery, and I really wasn't, back to 100%. I just coached. And what happened was I got back to my high school assistant coach, and he said, "Hey, they asked me to coach this 16U team, but I know you want to coach. Why don't you come in and coach with me?" And I go, the egotistical 20-year-old, and I go, "Yeah, I'll do it. But I mean, I need to be the head coach." And I'm saying this to at the time, this is a 38, 40-year-old high school assistant coach. And he goes, "Seriously?" And I go, "Absolutely, man. Let me be the head coach. You can tutor me, mentor me, and tell me where I go off." I made 1,000 mistakes. I remember giving signs with bases loaded, nobody out, and I'm giving signs, and I just bases loaded, 2 outs, nobody
Steal.
on. Yeah. And I'm giving, and the kids are like, what are you doing? Hit and run? Like, why are we just because the game sped up on me really fast at 20 and 21. But I'm also really grateful for all those mistakes because and we laugh about them now, but I remember the kids didn't play hard at a tournament. I didn't think they played hard, whatever that meant. And I thought it'd be really cool because that's what coaches do, right? Bobby Knight style. Let me go dog cuss them and that'll get them right. And I remember doing that in the back of this parking lot, and Coach Martin, who was the one that let me coach, he pulls me off on the side. He goes, "You feel better?" And I go, "No," because we didn't play very good. And he goes, "Never do that again." He goes, "Don't deposit your anger on those kids just so you feel better." Because that's not how this works, man. You need to figure out how to inspire them, how to get them right. But man, to sit here and dog cuss them and you think that's coaching, that ain't coaching. And I just went, oh my God, I'm way off on this thing. I laugh about where I was, but that's how it started. And then I just knew I wanted to coach college, whatever it took. And I got done playing, and I took a volunteer job at Georgetown. I took a $5,000 assistant job at Brescia University, which is a small NAIA school. I worked in a metal factory from 5 until 2 p.m. to make it work. I got a job at the University of Kentucky, and everybody thought I mean, if you're working at Kentucky in the SEC, you must be making 6 figures. I made $0, and I worked about 100 hours a week, and I worked every camp in the country. I've hustled the whole time, lessons, the whole thing, just to make it work. So, I mean, I think, I kind of cut my teeth early, and I knew I wanted to do it, but I'm really grateful that I had really positive people around me that were willing to kind of shoot me straight and point me in the right direction. Because you guys know as well as I, you screw up so many things when you're a young coach that thank God you have that experience to lean on.
I'm an old coach, and I'm still screwing up a lot of things.
Buddy, every day.
Yeah. Well, you're also, at that point, and it's funny because Jimmy and I kind of similar in terms of our first coaching job was a job, not even a job, volunteer, whatever, but it was with kids that were 3-4 years younger than us. It wasn't even, so right, you have that kind of weird dynamic too, where they're like almost at the age they could have been a freshman on your varsity team when you were playing, and now you're in that position. So you have to kind of, working through that dynamic by itself is interesting as well.
Well, I remember just how, if you're coaching at that age, and even a guy that's like 22, 23, 24, and he just got out of playing, and you coach what you know. That's right. It's not like you have this, as Jimmy, you do, you've got this bevy of like experience and ideas, and you've heard countless guys talk about all the different fundamentals, and then you've sort of worked your way through it, digested it, and come up with what you think is the best way to go about it. At 20, 21, 23, like it's all you got is what you know. So I'm sitting here,
experience.
Yeah. And which ain't much, right? It's not like you're drawing upon a whole lot. You're drawing upon 1 or 2 coaches' perspectives of the game. And I remember just things I was giving hitters at the time, and I was telling them to do stuff. And my view of hitting was purely mechanical, had nothing to do with situational or offensive strategy or run scoring. It was just mechanics, run the game. If you got great mechanics. And I cringe at that, but I'm also very guarded against it now. And when we hire some volunteer coaches to come into our program, man, I look at them all the way that I hope that Coach Martin looked at me. And I go, all right, man, I kind of know where you're at. I know where your heart's at. Let me help you just step back for a minute, watch how we do things, ask a lot of questions, stay curious, and let's see if we can challenge the way in which you see the world, the way in which you see the game, and what you believe. And I think some of our best work at grooming young assistant coaches honestly has come from me knowing how bad I was when I was their age. I don't want that to sound egotistical, but it's like, I know how a young coach thinks, and it's not in the big picture. It's in a very short bubble, and you try to help guard them against that.
But yeah, all of the mistakes that we make when we first start out, I look at it like that. It's almost like what we want out of our players to some degree, where you need to fail so that you learn from those failures and you can become better from that. So we need to go through that.
Yeah, we talk about in our program, and a lot of things we do is very failure free. And I think at the end of that, you sort of have to define that. What's that mean, Coach? That means that you have to recognize that everyone's relationship with the word failure is not always positive. Like for a lot of your kids, failure is final. Failure is defining. Failure has a pretty good stab into self-esteem. And that's just not the way I view failure, man. Go back to that Nelson Mandela quote. Yeah, I either win or I learn. There is no fail. And I think if you're helping players understand that, and certainly I try to, as bad as some of my failures have happened, even at 40 years old, I try to, reposition them and change the way that I view them to make them a learning opportunity, because it doesn't define you. It never has. An at bat and a random game in July in 2022 doesn't define who you are, right, a day from now, let alone a year from now. And so I think it's sort of changing that relationship a little bit. So I'm actually, and I was telling another coach this a couple months ago. We were talking about coaching journeys, and I said, man, 10 years ago, I would have gone through some of my stops and some of the guys I worked for, and I probably would have had some foul things to say, because I was sort of bitter. I was bitter at some of the experiences. I was bitter at maybe some of the lack of things that I learned, or the lack of responsibility, or the lack of, acknowledgement of who I thought I was, whatever it was. And I said, but now that I've worked through that, man, I'm grateful for every single one of those. And like we were talking about, I'm grateful that I have that experience of remembering exactly what it felt like to stand in that parking lot at 20 years old, thinking that I'm quote unquote coaching, and to fail so miserably. And then just to go, oh man, you gotta be in complete control. You got to understand the pulse of the team. You got to step back and not make it about you. It's really all about these guys and their experience. And I thank God every day for all those things, because it definitely.
Well, I think that you were really lucky to have Coach Martin, because at a very young age, you had somebody explain to you that that's not right.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've been there. I've done it.
Sure.
Game, and you beat the kids up, and if you don't have somebody to teach you, to explain why that's bad, well, it took me a little bit of time to learn that.
Sure.
So all coaches need to learn that. And now when I meet with my team, the first thing I do with the boys after, like, matter of fact, this morning we had a game after game. Okay, boys, how'd we do?
Yeah.
And we just go through everything, and all right, look, practice will work on this. We'll do this. It's not beating them up. It's not going to help anything.
It really isn't. And I had an older coach challenge me, especially when I took the job at Gwinnett. He sort of challenged me, like, what are some things that you're going to do different? And I said, one thing that I've watched really great coaches, they handle the post-game conversation in a much different way than my coaches did, or the way that I saw that. And I said, and he goes, what do you mean by that? I said, well, I think one thing is, like, despite the game's result, that shouldn't dictate the tone of the conversation. And in fact, if you can kind of inverse the result versus the conversation, and I know that's really tough, especially if you lose a highly contested or a rivalry game, there's still some emotion tied to it. But man, if you can sort of spin it and treat the loss a little bit differently, but then while you've got their attention after they won, man, if you can really harden on some things and really cut to the core, and you're almost setting a tone for the next practice. Hey, that's great, but we got to work on this, this, and this. Now there's a balance between all the positives and negatives, right? It's like a delicate Oreo cookie. You've got to, sandwich it, between some things. You got to, positive, negative in the middle. You've got to kind of negotiate that. But I also think too, I had a player tell me one time, he goes, Coach, man, like, after a game, you start talking, and I try to think in big picture concepts. I could talk about the specifics of the game, and maybe I hit on a few points, but man, you remember what we're trying to do. It's a process of grooming this team. Same way for you, Jimmy. It's a process of taking your team through the summer, and you're trying to hopefully have them play their very best at the end. So you have to manage that and manage the timing of that. And he said, Coach, I feel like sometimes you talk and I forget what the score was.
Yes.
Because the conversation has nothing to do with the score, has nothing to do with the result. It's, hey, this is what we need to hear at this moment. And here's how we're going to set the tone and reposition the way we saw the game. And I just think there's an incredible opportunity there as a coach, where I feel like what's the right word? Like, the amateur coach, the immature coach would probably just go, Oh, we lost. I better dog cuss them. Oh, we won. I guess we'll pass out cupcakes. Like that doesn't work, man. They already feel bad. I promise you that they lost. They already feel bad.
And I can tell you, I think a lot of that boils down to a topic Jimmy and I talk about all the time is the ego.
The ego.
Where, like, you know, 100%. you guys didn't play it well enough for me today, and here, so I'm going to let you have it. And then if you did win, you know, or you had a great game, hey, look what I taught you guys.
Yeah.
You know?
But and all that does is showcase to anybody that's paying attention that coach, or, you know, that he's got his whole self-esteem wrapped into the win or the loss. Yeah, and that's not fair to the kids. You've completely ruled out what matters the most. What matters the most is their learning, their journey, their experience. You're along for the ride, but you don't have to drive the car. You can actually let them drive the car, and maybe you sit in the back seat and you reach over a little bit and you may grab the wheel and sort of keep it on the road, but eventually you want to get out of the car. Yes. So it's removing yourself from anything that happened. It's what do these guys need right now? They need to be picked up a little bit. They just lost a tough game against a team that we really wanted to beat. Man, I got to pick them up. I think feel, Jimmy, you've probably heard me say this a lot. Feel as a baseball guy is the most admirable quality that a coach can have. Like feel Absolutely. For people, feel for moments, feel for the game. Oh,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that feel is not an easy thing. Not everybody has it.
That's true.
So it's a tough thing that you have to work towards, and you have to adjust constantly to get that feel. But yeah, to your point, it's a big part of it.
It is.
Well, one thing I wanted to go into, and Dave, you actually brought me right into it, is so I listened to you. You were talking to Joe Ferraro.
Yeah,
and you were talking to him, and you said something that you must fight against your ego.
Yeah.
What surprised me when you said that was, to me, you appear as someone with very little ego. So tell me what you meant by that.
Well, I think it goes back to, and I appreciate you saying that. And Joe's a dear friend of mine. I respect the heck out of that guy. What I go back to, and my journey in terms of years, I coached for 11 years, and then I worked for the ABCA for 4, and then this is my 4th year back. And in doing all that, the 4 years away from coaching, I'm a little, like, my default internally is to be a little hypercritical. So I even have some of my former players, they'll hear me say something like that on a podcast, go, Coach, man, it wasn't that bad. I'm like, well, to me it was, because I knew in my heart I needed you to win this game so that I could get a better job. Oh. And I was motivated by that. And I was motivated, almost putting a little bit of fear into my players and challenging their manhood a little bit. And I mean, things that I thought that's what coaching was. And I was just sort of guided by that spirit. Now, this is fresh on my brain, and I hope this doesn't cancel the show. But my buddy gave me his ESPN Plus login. And so I just watched the Bobby Knight 30 for 30.
Yeah.
Man, it just, for me, I just kept going, oh God. And I wasn't on that level, but man, there was some like old school, right, Jimmy? Like this is the way old school guy, like you gotta be tough, and and I had a lot of that in me. And at the core of that, this is what I'm getting back to. The core of that was my ego. It was driven because my wins and losses were tied to my self-esteem. If we lost, boy, I was a crabby dude to be around. And if we won, I mean, the world couldn't get much better. And my players knew it, man. You can't outsmart your players. Right. I think coaches sometimes think they can. You can. They're smarter than we give them credit for. So I think when I stepped away for 4 years, man, it really let me look back at that experience and go, gosh, I was so far off. I wasn't even on what was most important. I didn't make it about the kids. I didn't make it about them and their development and their journey and their, them just uncovering things about themselves. I didn't make it part of that, part of that focus. And so the one episode that I'll go back to is Coach Deggs. And this is when he was at Sam Houston State. And he goes, I die to my ego every day. I pray to die to my ego. And I just went, oh my, there's so much power in that. Coach Corbin dropped a line on me. It's you don't acknowledge. I mean, you don't buy into the ego. You know it's there, but you know how to put it away. He's like, it's okay. Like, and basically saying it's okay to have an ego. We all have an ego.
Right.
But when your ego is out in front of you, that's a bad look. And you got to know when to put it aside, how to reposition it. And I'm telling you, it's an everyday battle for me. I feel at times if we lose a few games, and my AD would tell you, he'll come into my office and go, "It's fine, man. It's fine." Because he knows I battle that. He's like, "You're going to be fine, man. Don't worry about it. Get back to teaching. Get back to pushing these guys. Get back to the things that matter." Because when your self-esteem feels like it's getting attacked, your body is trying to survive. And my ego will step right in front of everybody and go, "Hey, we got this." So you just got to be cognizant of how you're engineered. I think I told a travel team came by our facility today, and I told them, I said, I think one of the most admirable qualities you can have, and also a quality you have to grow and mature, is you have to have self-awareness. And if you don't know who you are and how you're engineered, then how can you truly grow? And there's just a lot of power in that.
Yeah, the whole thing with the ego, when you talk about whether you have a big ego or don't have a big ego, that's not the question. I think you have to have a big ego to be successful in life to some degree. It's a matter of, is it controlling you or you controlling it, type of thing. Like you talked about, getting out in front of it. But anybody that's a head coach, especially, has to have some kind of ego, because you have to speak with the voice of authority. You have to believe in what you're saying in order to get your message across to your kids. And if you don't have an ego, there's no way you can do that. You'd be, well, guys, here's what I think we should do. That's never going to work.
Is that what an egoless person sounds like?
I guess. If you think about it, you have to. Yeah, if you're not speaking with that voice of authority, your message is going to be so flat.
I think I think that's what it's kind of like. The best way I could frame it, and I'm getting back to what Coach Corbin was kind of getting at. It's Joe and I've talked about this. It's kind of like it's caging your ego, but it still has a view of what's going on. It can still see, but I just don't let that thing out of the cage. I don't let it run a meeting. I don't let it run a one-on-one. I don't let it get out in front. It's still there. I mean, and I think, surrounding that cage, like you said, is confidence. It's ambition. It's,
the self-awareness, that you were talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. But you're not letting that dude out of the cage. I'm not letting it run a meeting.
Yeah. It pokes its head out a little bit here and there, I imagine.
Through the crack, but then how that gate's still locked. Okay, I guess I'll stay it.
I love it. That's a great way of putting it, that it's in that cage. I love that.
Yeah.
Another question I have for you is, with elite coaches, guys that are at the top of their game, guys such as yourself. I mean, you're, National Coach of the Year. I mean, that's a great, great honor. What do coaches of that caliber have in common?
Well, I'm going to be honest, and this isn't me I don't put myself in that category. I got so many things I'm working on this summer, so many areas I have to get better at this fall for my team and for my own growth and journey. I think my wife sent a check into the committee. There's no way that I got that on my own merit. I promise you.
I want to, before you go into that, I want to point out, so Coach Sheets, if I may.
Sure.
So the head coach at Georgia Gwinnett College, and you're only going into your third year or fourth year?
Fourth year. COVID was my first year.
Only the fourth year. So so your first year was sort of not
derailed.
A real year, right? So yeah. So to win that in your second real year of coaching, coming back into the game after having been out of the coaching game, not the game itself. Obviously, you're never going to leave the game. That is quite the accomplishment, and you may not put yourself in that category, but obviously a lot of other people do. So again, I guess that's kind of keeping that ego down in check, but we'll sing your praises for you.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I think what separates high level coaches from the average coach, and that's the best way I could, the pool which is overcrowded, and there's a group that sit in lawn chairs outside the pool and they just watch everybody fight for water time. When I watch guys like that, when I watch and again, just because it's fresh, I watched Coach Bianco this season. And if you've watched the way that this guy, because I'm a college baseball nerd, guys. So I'm a dork in a lot of ways. And I'm a college baseball historian. I'm a fan of coaches. I study every move that they make. Like if you watch how this guy has built the Ole Miss program and the way he has positioned himself and the program itself, when you watch the change that's happened to him this year, to me, that is an elite coach recognizing that, once again, what's right for the kids. And when you listen to how they talk about how this guy, how his voice changed from the SEC tournament to getting in the regional to the super to Omaha, and even I texted with Mike Clement, their assistant coach, and he talked about how, man, coach, Bianco really just saw that this team had leadership, it had maturity, it had some fire in its belly, and all he had to do was sort of wrangle it and move it towards where it was trying to go. I think sometimes coaches try to step in and they try to get in the middle of it, and sometimes they get in the way of their players. And I think really elite coaches know how to, at some point, and I talk about this a lot with our team, I'm going to lead the top of that triangle for as long as I have to. And at some point, that triangle is going to flip on its head, and you're going to position me at the back of the group. And then all I'm going to do is push from behind, and I'm going to let you guys go wherever you want to go. And I think elite level coaches have that part of it figured out. I think there's another quality of elite coaches, and this is where this is where my brain always goes. I'm really into the gray area of baseball, the black and white stuff. I don't get on Twitter and argue hitting mechanics. I don't get in those spats, but boy, I am all about recognizing the mental process and the adjustments that are being made and prioritizing consistency in my players. I think there's also a piece of the ability to have Jimmy, as we talk, having a pulse for the game, having a pulse for your team, the ability to really step back and this is a higher level thought, but I mean, to really just feel your way through the game. And I can tell you what's going to happen. I can tell you that they're getting ready to go on a run. I can feel the momentum shift. If you're in tune, you feel that thing shift in their dugout. You feel that they're getting ready to go on a run here. You feel that they're going to scratch, and we got to somehow minimize. You can feel the game shift back in your own favor, and not just by a walk. I mean, you can feel things start to move around. And when I was around, again, Mike Martin, and not to name drop, but these just ABCA coaching legends, when you spend time with them, that's where their conversations are.
Right. But you almost have to name drop. I asked you what the elite coaches do. So.
Well, if you pay attention to guys that are just consistently putting themselves in a place where they can win that last game, and that's what they're talking about. They're not talking about, again, hit and run. They're not talking about swing mechanics. They're not talking about turn a double play. They're talking about some of the simple things that I think we as coaches, we cloud. We cloud our view. We cloud our perspective. We get too much in the weeds, and we don't just pull back to the real fabric of the game. And that's when you listen to a coach after he wins a national championship, he talks in very simple terms. We took care of the baseball. We got a couple hits right when we needed them. Yeah. And all that is recognizing, man, hey, this is a moment. It's a hinge moment in this game right here. If we get a 2-out RBI right here, boys, we win the ball game. This is a great line from Inning by Inning, a portrait of a coach. It was a documentary on Augie Garrido, and Augie is forever and ever will be my mentor and my coaching idol. And there's this game, and it's like the first weekend in February, and they're playing at University of San Diego, and the game starts to swing a little bit, and the camera's in the dugout, and the score is they're up 5-4, some version of that. And he leans over to his pitching coach, and he goes, we got to make a move right here, because, again, if this swings out of our favor, man, we lose. And it's the 7th. So what? And I asked one of my young guys, I go, so what's he saying there? What he's saying is, I can feel the swing in the game. I know who they've got in the bullpen. I can tell how we're offensively performing today. And if they come through and go up 6-5, we're not going to have the manpower. We don't have it in the cards today to beat their guy out of the bullpen because he can see himself 3 innings ahead of time.
Yeah.
And I just went, as a 23-year-old watching, I just went, oh my God, there's a whole new level to this. Elite coaches have that ability to have that vision through the game that I think we're all striving for. I think every day you're at the ballpark, you're striving to feel that.
Yeah, because our show here is geared, pretty much, well, not pretty much, it's geared completely towards youth baseball.
Sure.
And these are the type of things. Now, again, we know that the volunteer coaches and the younger coaches obviously are not elite coaches, but I think if we can put that out there so that they can hear what these guys do, that it's a goal for them. It's something to push towards to become a better coach. Obviously not everybody's going to become an elite coach, but the object is, just as you expect your players to get that 1% better every day, you as a coach have to try to get 1% better every day.
At the crux of that, Jimmy, I think is, if I could simplify all that, is the ability to slow the game down.
Yes.
And I think a lot of youth coaches and and certainly a lot of high school coaches and travel coaches that I get a chance to watch, I watch the game speed up on them. And the game has sped up on me for sure. It's not a, we're all guilty of that at some point. We're all affected by that. But I think that's where the rubber hits the road. Like, if you really want to be walking towards becoming a master coach, you learn how to slow the game down, and you don't get sped up by the emotions. You don't get, my guys make fun of me because, like, we'll go on a run and we'll bat around and we're scoring 6-7 runs. And our guy's like, Coach, man, come on, get a fist pump out there. I'm like, no, man, I'm going to be right here. Because you guys are still fired up that we've batted around. He's back in the box. We only have 1 out. So I'm looking deeper in the lineup going, yeah, but if he gets on, and then we can do this. And then if this guy comes up, and if this happens, and then this guy's kind of got an ailing hamstring, so I may pinch hit for him now, or I can wait until the 7th. And if we do that, they're going to make a move to the bullpen. I see number 37 up as a lefty. So if they do that, they're going to try to go left. And our guys are like, that's the game. That's the game within the game that you have to be playing at all times. And, there's never a moment. And I had to learn this going through our championship run. You start to position your mind at a place where you are so completely present that you can allow yourself to daydream and get into deeper in the game. But if you're not present and you're still beating yourself up because it's the 7th, but you called a bad hit and run the 3rd, because we're all guilty of that. Yeah. Man, why did I do that? God, I can't believe I did that. And and that big moment, I'm still mad with it. We struck out with bases loaded in the 5th, and hey, it's the 7th. It's the 7th.
It's right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we're here now. So
right. Why are we thinking about that?
You certainly can't position yourself for better moves in the future. Like my assistant, John Topoleski, he laughs at me all the time because I'll start looking at the lineup card and I go, so in the 9th, I mean, it's going to be these guys. And he goes, how do you know that? And I go, this is how it's going to turn over. And I'm not counting 6 ahead. I'm going, yeah, and then he'll probably get a hit because he's seeing the ball well, and then this will happen. Right. It's going to be these 3 guys. And he's like, and again, it's like it's recognizing a swing, and you go, oh man, he's going to be late on that fastball, and you bring your left fielder in for the flare. I mean, to me, that is on your way to becoming a master coach, is when you're just so in tune with the game. I'm not worried about anything else. I'm just so in tune that the game is sort of, this is going to sound like a hippie here, but the game is sort of flowing through your veins. You're just in tune, you're in rhythm, and then you make your moves as a coach. That to me is the essence of it.
And the idea is what Coach Chaffin said when he was on is,
man,
no, I could tell we talked baseball. We did the show, and then I think him and I stayed on for another 2.5, 3 hours talking baseball.
Don't doubt it one bit.
Oh my God! But
yeah, I had to get off after about 45 minutes or so, but then it just carried on.
I really believe we got off the Zoom call at like 12:30 in the morning. But like he said, it's a matter of being prepared, yes. Right? Yeah. So that's what you're doing by reading what's coming up and getting yourself ready for, I'm going to get this guy loose in the bullpen, or I'm going to pinch hit here, I'm going to pinch run there.
Yep.
You're being prepared. And again, that's what a lot of younger coaches need to understand. Just to give you an idea, there's times in a game where I don't think I've ever seen this in either high school. Well, maybe I've seen it in high school, but in my travel world, I don't think I've ever seen two pitchers getting loose in the bullpen at the same time.
There you go.
But I'll have two guys up, and people will say to me, "Why do you got two guys up?" You know that, and it's like, well, because if this happens, that happens. This is what I want to be able to do.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back for the youth coaches to understand it's pretty much about being prepared.
Yeah, I think if you, not in a way to beat yourself up, but I think it's in a way of growth. If you end a game and you get in the truck and you get home, or you're getting ready to lay down, you go back through the game, as we all do. If you can be vulnerable with yourself and you can say, man, there in the third, I should have made a move. I should have gone and slowed things down. I was debating on it and I got stuck and I froze. Man, I should have had Ryan up ready to pinch hit in that spot. And I can't believe I left Chase in for that fifth at bat. I should have made a move. If you can just honestly critique yourself that way, boy, that's going to prepare you for that next game. And I think, I don't know, man, talk about ego, David, back to that. Like sometimes that ego gets in the way and it's like, no, you're fine, man. Your just players aren't good enough, or, hey,
I was going to say that the players just didn't execute.
Yeah.
It's more than that.
How often
so
do we actually confess that maybe we were outcoached?
Yeah.
And that happens.
It's we're human. And if you can go back to it, if you can put that ego aside for a minute, and then hopefully, like we talk about, we want our kids to learn 1% every day. Yeah. Hopefully you learn from it. It's an expression I like to use. I use it at work and as well as in coaching, is just, I only need to get smacked in the face once with something, and then now eventually it'll come back around, but because my brain only has so much memory in it at this point in my life, but that's one of the expressions I love to use all the time. If something happens to me that is probably, now I also coach JV. I haven't coached travel in years. I'm an assistant JV coach locally, kind of got just brought back in 2 years ago into it. That's one of the big things that we really fight hard. The head coach and I are very good friends. We actually played ball together a little bit as kids, and then in our 20s when we were still playing. And so we know each other real well. And it's good because both of us are constant. It's not, I'm the assistant coach, but it's kind of 1 and 1A type of thing. Sure, so we're constantly both looking, and it's like, hey, should I get so-and-so up and going? Yes, definitely get them now. Now's the time, and that type of thing. So we've it's only been 2 years, but because the first year was canceled because of COVID, but we've been able to shrink those moments down smaller and smaller, where we're getting, I hate when it's like, oh, I want so-and-so to pinch hit. Well, he's up right now. So now you got somebody cold's coming off the bench, and and a 13, 14-year-old kid with that pressure and everything, it's a recipe for bad,
I think that's that's to me is the fun part. The fun part is obviously teaching and coaching and getting your guys to the point to compete. But, I don't know. I always say I'm pretty insignificant once the game starts. And in a lot of ways you are, but man, like I love playing that inner game of chess,
right?
And just going, but then we got this move. Let me see how this is going. And I think you see the game so much differently. And once again, you're not swayed by the ups and downs, emotional roller coaster of the game. You just don't buy into that. I don't ever buy a ticket on that train. I just let it play out. If the other team wants to, sell out tickets, they can do that all day long. But I want my team as consistent, as flat edge, as centered as we can. And that's where I'm able to navigate the game from a different perspective.
What's funny about what you just said is, believe it or not, Trent Mongero put something on Facebook the other day about coaches, what you just said about that roller coaster ride, and how to smooth that out. And I'm very similar to what you described. You won't even know that I'm there. You don't hear a sound out of me. You don't hear anything. But, and what I went back to Mongero with was, what I struggle with is when a player has a mishap on something that we've been drilling and drilling and drilling in practice. And I can't keep my emotions in check. And I said to him, I said, Coach, I need some advice because I want to keep those emotions in check, but I just let them out. And he talked me off the ledge a little bit, but it's a tough thing to do.
It is. It is. I always look at, and this isn't, I'm always perfect at this, but like the game's not a place where I need to be emotional. It's just not. I'm a much clearer thinker, same way that I am if, my kid gets in trouble here at home. If I try to stay as level-headed as I can, man, I'm a much clearer thinker.
Right.
I won't be saying I'm sorry as much, and we all have, if you have a wife, if you just measure yourself a little bit. Well, I try to measure myself in game. Like I don't want to be emotional. I don't want to go into that because I want to stay as in tune, as centered as I can. And if I am, we've been working on a base running deal and a kid gets thrown out, man, if that kid in that moment can see me not get emotional and I can just come up to him and just have a conversation about what happened and I can keep it even in a little bit of like just teaching mode, man, I watch those eyes just go, golly, man, like most coaches would have broken their clipboard by now. And it's like, nah, that ain't me. And that's not how we do things. So I want to reinforce to you, this is why we continue to work on it. Like it might have a tone to it, but it's definitely not going to take that kid, emotionally somewhere different. I want him to keep playing.
Well, that's my point. And you summed it up in a nutshell because yes, I don't want him to see me get upset. I don't want to see it. Yeah. So I want to be able to keep that in check. I'll do the same thing. It'll be a very, very short time where, I won't, but maybe I'll bang the bench or something, with my hand.
Sure.
I don't want him to see that. Now, when he comes back in, I will have that conversation. Hey, bud, come on. We've been working on this, what we're supposed to be doing. Okay. And I calm down immediately, but I don't want him to see that outburst. So it's something that, again, to you coaches out there that are coaching kids, we're always trying to work on things to make ourselves better. And that's one of my things that I'm working on right now. So
if you cross your arms
yes,
and you dig your hands into your rib cage, you can't bang on anything.
Oh, there you go.
So like one of my guys goes, Coach, man, it doesn't matter if, it's going good or it's going really bad, man, you don't react. Well, I'm doing that intentionally because I want to be consistent. I want them to see that I'm not buying into this. But I'll tell you what, if we're giving up a couple hits or we walk a couple guys or whatever, boy, my hands, I am deep into my rib cage. I'm like, gosh, throw strikes. But I'm not going to I'm not going to, again, slap the wall. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to react. And I think it's, once again, I think the key word there is it's intentional. It's for a reason. I want to promote the most consistent mindset, body language, attitude, focus to my guys, because that's kind of what I want them to embody.
Okay, so I want to go into another area. One quick question about travel ball. Now, you had mentioned, that you do some work with the Canes, and so you're a little bit involved with quote unquote travel baseball. Do you think travel baseball is taking over? That it's creating problems for high school? And I already know it's creating problems for Little League, and I'm starting to see it have a bad effect on high school baseball. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. I see all those issues. It's unfortunate that rec ball is becoming less and less of a thing. I think you've got a lot of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds that don't have the rec league experience. And so guess what? They don't play.
Right.
Yeah.
And man, I got kids. One of my Facebook memories came up and it was a picture of my 10-year-old instructional league team. So it's like the year before you go into Little League.
Yeah.
And we're 10 years old. And I'll look at some of those faces and 3 or 4 of them never even tried to play baseball after that year. And a couple of them played into Little League, then they quit after Little League. A couple of them played Babe Ruth and they quit. A couple of those guys I played high school with or against. And that's kind of the natural progression, right? It's like soccer. Like everybody plays soccer when they're 5, and then a select group plays it when they're 7, and an even smaller group when they're 9, 10, 11. And that's kind of like but baseball is starting to lose that, because now you've got this travel deal where if they're not playing travel ball at 7, they just don't play because there isn't enough kids to play rec league. That to me is the misfortune that our group, and certainly the generations before, had. Man, you're still building baseball fans, even though they're not playing. They sort of like end it on their own terms. They don't end it because they can't get or make a travel team.
Right, because I had no place else to go.
Yes. And that part's the most, to me, that's one of the most unfortunate things. I don't like the fact that it's sort of stepping in front of high school baseball. I do understand the dynamic that in the summer, we're not playing as college coaches, so it is the best time for exposure. I get that. It is incredibly important. I get that. But I think most college coaches worth their salt would tell you that I may see your kid play summer baseball, and I may go up and ask the summer coach what he thinks of little Johnny Johnson. But you better believe I'm calling his high school coach, who knows who that kid is in history class, who he is in the hallway, who he is at his locker, how he treats his girlfriends. He'll know more about his parents. That high school coach is going to be like, they're still incredibly involved, whether that's showcased out there or not. And I, my last point would be this, man. I don't, as much as it meant to me to wear the FC on my chest for Franklin County High School, like, I remember being in 8th grade, walking over and watching the varsity play, dreaming of the day I could wear Franklin County across my chest.
Yeah.
And we're starting to lose that. And again, it doesn't, I mean this in the right way. And I coach with the Canes, and it's a big brand, and it means a lot to put that C on, but it definitely doesn't mean as much as it should to wear your high school uniform and bleed those colors and do it for your community. And that high school coach is that pivotal dude inside your community. We're definitely missing that in a lot of places. Now, not everywhere, but in a lot of different places, we're missing that dynamic. And there's a penalty to be paid for that. There really is. In the grand scheme of things, there's a penalty to be paid.
What I'm seeing is that back when travel baseball first started becoming, getting more and more traction, which was back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when it started really getting traction. And back then it was the best of the best played travel ball, and that was it. Now what's happened is that travel ball has turned into everybody plays travel ball. There are guys out there that are making tons of money off of kids that have no shot at going to play college baseball, or some of them, I would even venture, I don't want to say a lot of them, but many of them won't even play high school baseball.
Sure.
And it's become, we just played in a tournament this weekend that there were 10 teams. I believe there was one team in that tournament that had players on it. Now, I scout for USA Baseball. So when I'm at these tournaments, I'm looking for players to bring to our regional tryouts.
Sure.
And there's very few. You can even go to local perfect game tournaments and have teams in there that those kids should be playing recreational baseball.
Sure.
And somebody is selling them a bill of goods.
Yeah. And I think that part's unfortunate, but it's also like, it is like every single market that's out there in our world. We just hate it because it's now infiltrated baseball. and I mean that in the absolute way. Like, Skittles is battling out Sweet Tarts, and they're doing everything they can to get people to buy Skittles. And they're, and being unapologetic about it and letting everybody do it. And it takes a little bit of that market share. Well, it's the same way for travel baseball. Everybody's trying to, start a new team and rename and reposition and sell an affiliate. And so and again, we're Canes is in that boat. USA Prime's in that boat. The Sticks, as we talked about, they're all in that boat, and we're selling these affiliate teams. And it is a business model. And I think that's the part that, old heads, kind of like myself, you start to go, man, the game didn't used to, it's where the game's at. It's where we're at. Business is here. And I think it's, at the end of the day, you still have the ability to, as a consumer, you still have the ability to cut through marketing and decide who you think is doing it best.
Right.
So you can buy in if you want, buy Sweet Tarts if you want. If you don't like their marketing scheme, go buy Skittles. Like, you can still do that, but I think it's tougher and tougher. So to your point, these kids that maybe shouldn't be playing travel and should be rec league bound and may not play, man, it's given them a false sense of security, entitlement, sort of where they position themselves or see themselves, where their parents see themselves. It's not fair, but man, at the end of the day, it's a business model. So like, you probably can't afford that Corvette, but you bought it. And now that you bought it, you think you're rich, but you're really not. Like, you're actually poor because you got $800 a month payment. Like, it's the same way.
But you got to drive. You got to drive it you're going to drive it every day. So the other aspect of that comes into play is I believe very strongly that's also a big part. The whole shifting away from town and everybody trying to play travel is also what is leading to, the lack of interest of the younger players as they get older, when they realize that they're not good enough to play on a good travel team, but they are on this team that's, whatever that, not a real strong team, but they go to these tournaments and they get blown out, or even some of the leagues they get blown out. Yeah. And the kids aren't having fun. And then what about the kids on that team that are barely getting playing time and the team's not even that good? Those kids are not having fun. They're not going to come back the next year. And it's the example I used to give, because this is going back. So my oldest son is 21. So this is even going back to when he was like a 9-year-old, and for All-Stars, the All-Star coach was trying to get together as a travel team, which that's kind of where these expanded teams, I think, started, was like All-Star teams would try to keep going through the year, which you see some logic in that, right? Keep the team playing together. But it would also pigeonhole these kids where like, oh, that's my left fielder. The kid's 9, and you just designated for the rest of his life he's the left fielder. And the same thing with travel ball, where if he's playing rec ball, he might be a third baseman or a shortstop, or he might be the third best pitcher on the team, but on that travel team, he's never gonna sniff the mound. And this is what contributes to these kids just at 10 years old, 12 years old, they're out, they're done.
Yeah. Cause my passion's not right field. Like, right. Again, I go back to my little league experience, like first base. So, coach, how do you play first base? Well, man, the big key here is, obviously you catch all the infield ground balls that come at you. You got to do a good job of picking up your teammates. You got to pick balls out of the dirt from time to time. And guess what else you get to do? You don't have a lot of action, so you get to talk the whole time. Guys, that was perfect for me.
That was good.
I was a guy in right field, just a chatterbox, but everybody's like, hey, he's 200 feet away. What's he saying? Well, if I'm at first base, you're hearing me, and I'm leading the infield. And he was like, you start to, again, you put a kid in a new position, or how, like, to your point, you bring the left fielder in, you put him at third base, and you go, holy smokes, this kid can play third base. Right. And it teaches him athleticism and different moves, and the game is faster. And maybe, again, I agree with you completely. I see these teams, especially on the youth level, being built. And man, and again, I know it's tough to do, so it's easy for me to sit from the sidelines and say this, but man, there should be a point of emphasis on sort of moving these kids around and giving them some opportunities. Like, I know he can't play short, but give him an inning so that not only all of us know he can't play short, the kid realizes he can't play short. Like, hey, it's a different animal there. So maybe you're not a shortstop. Maybe you're a third baseman. Maybe you're a second baseman. Maybe you are a left fielder. And but it allows them to sort of see the game much differently. And you can't criticize pitchers if you've never pitched. Like,
I just had something on this subject just happened in practice the other day. Kid that has been an infielder. Now he's 14 years old. Okay.
Yeah.
He's been an infielder, and how do I put this in a nice way, is he doesn't do well in the infield. Okay. Yeah. So I've been putting him in the outfield, seeing how he reacts to fly balls and how he plays the outfield. And he came over to me and he said, hey, coach, he goes, why am I taking so much practice in the outfield? And I said, well, I'm trying to see what you can do. I said, let's see what you got out there. well, I really only want to play second base. And I said, listen, Mikey, I said, the whole idea is I'm going to move you around everywhere I possibly can to
Yeah.
see where you're going to be the most successful. And wherever that spot is, that's where we're going to land.
Yeah.
And I believe that's the way it should be.
Sure. But he only sees himself as this.
Right.
And we ran into this on our JV team, a kid that we thought was going to be our starting catcher. Now I come from a very, very small school district, Sheets. And so our JV team is just as many kids from the junior high as the high school. We don't have a freshman team. So we are 8th and 9th graders essentially. So the kid who we thought, from talking to the modified coach from the year before, kid who was going to be our starting catcher, like the second day of winter workouts, came up and told the head coach, yeah, I don't want to catch anymore. Well, okay, great. So we wound up, we filled the spot and wound up doing okay. Well, halfway through the season, he came up and said, I think I'd like to get back behind the plate, because as it turned out, he really wasn't very proficient anywhere else. He wasn't particularly quick. I think he wanted to play second base, and he wasn't particularly quick. He wasn't remembering the assignments, which I looked at that odd, because as a catcher, I don't know if you ever caught, but obviously you've taught a ton of catchers. You need to know everything, right? You need to know. So, he couldn't remember if it was a ball, to right field, which way did he go, or whatever, any of that stuff. Way too slow to be effective in the outfield type of thing. So we were putting him in and here and there, but he was not playing anywhere near consistency that he was hoping for. And all of a sudden it dawned on him like, oh yeah, I am actually good there. And, at that point, I'm not going to say it was too late, but it kind of was, because we had an established catcher at that point.
Sure.
So it's also a matter, these kids have to be able to see. You have to be able to move them around to show them sometimes that, you can't just snap and be the starter. So would you rather be the starter in right field and play 5 innings a game, or be the backup second baseman and maybe get in every other game, like that type of, or third on the team at shortstop, or whatever the case may be.
Well, the other part, it's actually kind of curtail that a little bit, is, in fact, if you go play other positions and you can hold your own. Now, I know that sounds like jack of all trades, master of none, but there's a lot to be said for utility player. You can put him anywhere, coach. Anywhere? Absolutely. He's played third. He's played second. He's played left. He's played right. Now, he's not a center fielder and he's not a shortstop, but anywhere else, he's got experience. That is incredibly valuable. So like when we're recruiting kids, right now, I think part of what's going to make this particular team very unique is that we've got 2 guys who are catchers / first or third baseman / first baseman, and one of them also pitches. We've got 2 or 3 right outfielders that have played left, right, first base. We've got obviously your middle infielders are pretty, can flip back and forth. Our center fielders, and we purposely, in all of our drills and everything we do that's like position specific, is we move the outfielders around. Everybody sees action in all spots. Even if you're a tried and true right fielder, you're still going to see some in center, because I want you to appreciate how hard that spot is, like how much more gap you have to cover when you're playing center. But also on the infield, we have our first baseman come over and train just like our shortstops do, because I want them to understand, like, that's an incredibly tough play. So you need to know, number one, there should be a little bit more fever in your belly to go pick that ball out of the dirt for him, because, man, he just made a heck of a play. But there's also a piece of that, man, they're learning athleticism in ways that if you just pigeonhole yourself into one spot, you're only going to move within the framework of that one spot. If you take a third baseman and you send them to short, man, the game is completely different. If you send that kid to first, he's got a completely different view of the entire infield. Man, you're helping that kid raise his IQ, raise his athleticism. But man, you might find out that, man, this kid can play other places. That's an incredibly valuable tool for sure.
Yeah, there are times in practice where if we're taking ground balls in the infield, I'll bring my outfielders in and I'll make them take reps with the infielders.
There you go.
And I'll do the opposite. I'll take my infielders and put them out and take reps with the outfielders. Again, you have to remember they're young, they're 14. But I may see something or I may find something in somebody that nobody knew was there.
Hey, I bet that right fielder doesn't scream, "Hey, let's go. Make that play." Like, hey, you can't make that play. Why don't you keep it down out there? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's like I was saying, to be the backup shortstop isn't helping you. Your shortstop's one of those positions that probably isn't seeing the bench a whole hell of a lot. So if you're number 2 on the depth chart at shortstop, but you might be number 1 in center field. And that's actually how we've gotten our center fielders the last 2 years, because we really didn't have one starting the beginning of the season. And it was like, all right, well, this guy's second best infielder. That's not helping us. So let's see, maybe that'll translate to the outfield. And it's actually worked out fairly well.
That's awesome.
So
sure.
There's a couple real quick things that I want to get to. And then I think I don't want to take up too much of your time. We'll start to wrap this up. There's so many things that I still want to ask, but
I'll give you quicker answers.
Yeah, I'm going to go for the quick one here. Okay. Well, I don't know if this is such a quick one, but in your opinion, everything that we do, whatever level coach you are, national coach of the year down to the guy who's coaching 6-year-old little league, it's all about the people, isn't it?
People and process. You look at any great business, the CEO will talk about people and process. You look at any great coach, they'll talk about people and process. If you don't, you can't hang a banner without the right people in the room. You just can't. You can't, you can't win a championship without a great catcher and a great shortstop. You can't. You got to have the right people. If the attitude's wrong on the bench, you won't win. People build championships. The other side of it to me is process. You have to recognize that it takes time. It takes ups and downs. No season in baseball has ever been perfect. So you're going to have pitfalls. You're going to have adversity. But if you can manage people and process, that's what it's where it all comes back to. Those two things, manage them both.
So, and I'm going to stop you there because I could squeeze one more thing in here. If you had
January 6th, let's talk about
if there was, well, no, I'm not even going to say one thing. What advice would you give to youth baseball coaches? What would be your best advice?
Ooh, could give you a lot. 2 things: be organized and make sure that the kids have fun. I know that seems easier said than done, but the kids need structure and they won't scream for it. But I promise you, that's what will keep them coming back. When they know what to expect, they know that you start practice with a quick 5-minute on a knee conversation. They know that they have fun when they stretch, that you actually teach them during catch play, that you do some fun drills. It isn't just one kid hitting with 15 shagging. You have a unique way that you move people through BP. When you do things like that, the kids will respond to you. So be organized because they need it, and then make everything as fun as it can get. Like, laugh with them, cut up with them, find a way in the middle of practice to do something funny, do a dance off that, if this team wins, then the other team has to pick up the baseballs. Bud Ritchie used to have a saying, I still, again, reference it: hit, run, have fun, and chew bubble gum. That's how you should play baseball. And he would bring bubble gum to every practice. And if you got a hit, he'd toss you a piece of gum. He just made the game so much fun that you wanted to keep coming back. That's what I would advise youth coaches.
Nice.
Okay. Well, one other thing that I wanted to ask you, and that's it. And then we'll wrap it up.
Sure.
What's the story with the coffee? I got to know that. The pumpkin spice versus.
Wow. I'm trying to think where that came from. So, gosh, when did I have my first one? I think it was when I got to Gwinnett. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I had them before I got here. And our assistant AD, Kyle Norton, who is an OG, he's an original Grizzly. He was on the first team that ever played here. he's walking around with this Starbucks drink, and I drink my coffee unapologetically with a lot of creamer, and it's usually French vanilla creamer. It's just how I do it. I can't drink it black. Sorry if that makes me less of a man. I'm a huge John Wayne fan, and he would probably frown upon my coffee drinking technique. But I, always drink coffee with creamer. And I saw him walking around with this drink that's got some cream, and I'm like, hey, what is that? He goes, oh, once you have one, you'll never go back. All right, man. Well, it's the pumpkin cream cold brew, because I got the job in August. It was around fall. And I dove in head first, and man, I'm a big pumpkin guy. It's so good. And it just became this thing. And Butch, our friend, Coach Chaffin, would give me so much flack, Jimmy, that my local Starbucks group, I started to have them calling it the Butch. So I'd walk in and say, hey, can you give me a Butch? And they'd write Butch on it, and it'd be the pumpkin cream cold brew. And it just got under his skin so bad because he wanted me to drink coffee black. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't had one in probably every bit of 8 months.
Wow.
I don't drink them. I mean, I really don't anymore. But man, if I have a chance to put my hands on one, unbelievable. Best drink I've ever had. Phenomenal.
Because I got a kick out of that. I saw that going back and forth on Twitter,
Sure.
and I was
Oh, yeah.
hysterical.
I catch a lot of flack in our coaching group for the way I drink coffee. Let's just say that.
And
Yeah.
I'm assuming, I know Chaffin is about my age. We're about the same age. And as I'm reading this, I'm saying, yeah, I mean, I have it black. I put a little bit of milk or a little bit of cream, and that's it. I
get it. They call me a bratty white girl. Like I get all the comments, and I'm good with it because I just, it's how I drink my coffee. But the cold brew, the pumpkin cream, like it's a different level, but for me, I'll go there. I'm unapologetic about it. I'll go there in a heartbeat. Yeah.
All right. Well, at least we cleared that up.
Absolutely. Appreciate that.
Right. Little look behind the curtain at one of the best coaches in the country, and how he takes his coffee a little on the sweet side. That's all right.
No doubt.
That's all right. Well, I want to thank you for coming out and talking with us tonight, Sheets. It's been just a fantastic conversation. I know everybody's time is valuable. Really appreciate you taking the time with us, and for our listeners here, I think it was a great conversation. I think everybody can get a lot out of it. You want to go ahead and give us your social media, how people can follow you on Twitter, Facebook, however you have it?
Sure. Let me first start by saying I just appreciate you guys having me on. I think the opportunity to talk through some of that stuff, it really makes you better. And I want every interview that we ever do to sound different, and it makes you process things in a very unique way, based on the audience and based on obviously the questioning. But for you guys to have me on, I'm very honored, and I really appreciate the opportunity to do it.
I think the honor was all ours. Go ahead.
I enjoyed it. I had a blast on this side. Yeah, please reach out to me. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, even though I've got to get better on TikTok. But everything is at Coach Sheets 3. And you can reach out to me anytime. My DMs are open. Try to help out any way that I can. I think one thing that we do in our program is we share, and we share a lot. So we share through at GGC_baseball. We've got a YouTube channel. We share a lot of drills and videos from our practice. I think you got to be the change you wish to see in the world. And one thing that I wish more coaches did is they did pull back that curtain and just show people authentically who you are and what you do and how you do things. And you can't die with your playbook. Like, you got to share it. You don't have to tell everybody your signs, but share your playbook. Like, let people know what you're doing. And I think it's all about growing the game. And so we try to share as much as we can. And I got a ton of resources out there, and I'm certainly willing to give as many as I can. So I please connect with me if I can help.
One other thing that I wanted to bring out before you go, I know that you're getting ready to do something in the podcast world again. Are you ready to announce anything, or is that something that's coming?
And just that it's coming. All right. So
Okay.
it's forgot that ambiguous, I guess. I don't know what I'm going to call it. I don't even have a name yet. I don't have a first guest. I don't have anything set up yet, but I am, I think a lot of it, Jimmy, I've been chewing on that for months, and I'm like, there's a piece of me that I'm missing something. I miss having these conversations.
Yes.
I miss being curious. I miss that interaction back and forth, that conversation in this structure, it really challenged you to think a little bit differently about things. And so but I think what's going to be different is it may not be baseball centered all the time. I want to talk to other sport coaches. I want to talk to leaders. I want to talk to some authors. I really want to show that I've got a little bit more than maybe a baseball brain, even though I'm kind of a dumb baseball coach. I don't mind getting in a conversation with an author and being schooled, because it's going to make me better. But I want to do something, and I'm trying to get it back going this fall. And so hopefully if you're following on Twitter and everything else, you'll see it. It'll be out there. I'll promote it.
Yeah, if there was anything, the reason why I brought
appreciate
it up,
that.
If there was something to announce, we could get it out, but I will watch, and when it is there, believe me, we'll promote it.
Yeah, we're coming soon, but I don't know what to look for yet. It'll be there.
All right, sounds great. Sounds great.
Yeah,
we'll definitely share it. We'll share it with our listeners when the time comes. So just keep us informed on that. Otherwise, again, just want to thank you for your time today. And hopefully we'll get you back on again, maybe after the fall season's over, when awesome. when you have your week and a half of free time in between fall and
I'd love to do that.
Spring, and we'll get you back again.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thanks,
Sheets. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Well, there you have it. That's a conversation with Coach Sheets. That's Jeremy Sheetinger. He's the head coach at Georgia Gwinnett College. And, interesting conversation with an interesting guy. I know you've heard him speak a bunch of times in the past and have a lot of respect for him. How'd you think it went?
Oh, I thought it went great, Dave. I mean, let's face it. I knew going into the interview that he was going to bring a lot of stuff to the table that is really important for coaches to understand. He is just a wealth of knowledge. I've been following him for many, many years and listened to him primarily on his ABCA podcast. And I was really excited to get him on. I guess we're both learning that a lot of these guys that are high level guys in baseball, they love sharing and they love talking baseball. Again, to me, it was like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah, I could tell how into the conversation that you were, and that was great. I think it came across really, really well. I think there was a wealth of knowledge that our listeners can gain from him, and we encourage you to check him out, following him on Twitter. And hey, if you're in a position to be looking at going to play baseball out of the college, ring him up, because he's a guy that you want to play for. He's a guy that is going to takes care of his players, make sure that there's no funny business going on. He's making sure that they're healthy and they're following some pretty strict regimens. And he's a guy that I would want my kid to play for. And I think that says it all.
Yeah, he's definitely the kind of coach that if I was a player at this day and age, I would want to play for. I believe that he has that philosophy of building men, not only baseball players, but building men. And I think that he's just one of the best.
All right, so that wraps it up. An interesting conversation with an interesting guy. He's got quite the background, and he's a young guy. He's, especially compared to you and me. So he's got a lot of years left in this game. So like I said, I would not hesitate to try to reach out to him if you have a child or one of our listeners is in that market. Sophomore or junior, you're looking for a place to play ball. It's an awesome program. It's a high level, so you better be ready, but certainly doesn't hurt to reach out. So that'll do it for this week's edition. Please remember to reach out to us at the CTB Show on Twitter. You can email us at clearingthebases@gmail.com. And please, rate and review the show. It helps drive us up the charts. Our listenership, again, is taking leaps and bounds. It's growing. And that's what I was going to say. When you talk about some of these guys, whether or not they want to come on our show, they can see that we're moving up the charts, and we do have quite the varied audience. So there's no reason. They love talking baseball. We love talking baseball. It's a happy marriage to be made. So make sure you guys, again, rate and review the show. We like to hear feedback from you guys at the email address, and tell a friend, tell a teammate, tell a fellow parent. If you like what you're hearing, let's spread the word. So for the Clearing the Bases show, please always remember there's only two things in life that we can control at all times. That's our effort and our attitude. give us 100% effort, positive mental attitude, PMA, and good things will follow. Final thoughts, Coach?
You know, Dave, I think it was great that everybody got to see a little bit behind the curtain of what some of the elite coaches do with their baseball teams and how they handle certain situations and how they approach their position as head coach. And Sheets is just, like I said before, I mean, I know I'm repeating myself, but he is one of the best out there. And I think that there's a lot of stuff there that our listeners should be able to use to be able to build themselves into better coaches. So I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you appreciated the interview, and always remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Take care, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.